worry about protests? Do you worry about Republic coming and shouting things
Everyone has a right to think what they want.
No one saw it coming when a royal relative made a surprising comment during an event in Windsor Castle. During what seemed like a grand celebration of the royal family, Camilla's son made a comment about Anne that left everyone totally in shock. The moment was meant to be a simple remark, but instead it turned into a moment that changed what we knew about the royal family. The words of this relative has got everyone talking, but beyond that is the reaction it has caused from Prince William. What was the comment, and how did William react to it that shocked everyone? Join us as we dive into the full story. The Windsor Incident. That evening at Windsor Castle's grand reception room, something unexpected took place. Over the years, the royal family has seen its share of family history where crowns are placed on heads, alliances are sealed with champagne toast and the quiet diplomacy of 1,000 royal smiles. However, that evening was meant to be different. It was not a night of politics or spectacle, but a simple gathering which was meant to be warm, familial, even peaceful. It was a night of celebration in honor of Princess Anne's 50 years of tireless service to charities. The atmosphere carried a familiar blend of perfume, grand structures, and quiet power that is felt in royal rooms. At the heart of it all stood Princess Anne, neat, composed, and entirely herself. No theatrics, no fuss. She wore a navy dress with her signature brooch pinned near her shoulder, which was a symbol of dignity. Around her, guests mingled, whispering words of praise for a woman who, despite being born into unimaginable privilege, had spent her life working harder than almost anyone else in that room. King Charles praised the 50 years of service with unmistakable pride as he raised his glass, commenting that it was a record that speaks not just of time, but of devotion. There was applause, smiles. Camilla stood radiant beside her husband, nodding approvingly. And close to them was Prince William, who stood poised and respectful as he looked at Anne with quiet admiration. To William, she wasn't just his aunt. She was an anchor. Throughout the chaos of his youth, from the tragedy to the tabloids and endless speculation, she has been a constant. Never complained, never sought attention, and never wavered in her role. She embodied what he always believed the monarchy should represent. The evening moved on with ease as people talked about art, politics, the future of the monarchy, and the likes of it. It was during one of these light-hearted exchanges, when people were relaxed and laughter came easily, that it happened. The moment that would change everything. So keep watching to find out. Tom Parker Bowles, Queen Camilla's son, had joined a small cluster near the buffet table. He was known more for his culinary writing than royal circles. Although familiar, his presence at such gatherings was unusual. He had a personality that was charming, witty, and perfectly comfortable speaking his mind. It had served him well in his career, but that night, it unfortunately didn't serve him positively. Tom sipped his wine and chuckled at a courtier's comment about the royals' slow pace of change, then casually remarked that while Princess Anne's dedication was admirable, her traditional approach to royal duties seemed somewhat outdated, wondering if engagements like factory visits and country fairs still resonated with modern Britain. No one reacted for a brief moment. It would have passed as a simple comment in another setting. But here, in a room filled with tradition and hierarchy, those words seemed to hang in the air like smoke. A few guests froze mid-sip. One woman's smile faltered. Standing just a few feet away was Princess Anne, who heard every word. But she didn't flinch in a way anyone would notice. Her back stayed straight, her chin up, and face perfectly composed. However, those who knew her like the king, William, even Camilla saw it. The faint tightening of her jaw, the smallest flicker in her eyes telling that a line had been crossed. The mood in the room changed instantly. No one said a word, but everyone felt the uncomfortable shift. William's eyes locked on Tom with his jaw tight, like he was stopping some words from coming out. What happened wasn't just a passing remark to him, it was disrespect. Whether intentionally or not, he had belittled a woman who has given her entire life to duty. Meanwhile, Anne, to her credit, handled it the way only she could. She cleared her throat softly, her voice steady, as she said that the connection to modern Britain, as he put it, is precisely why they continue those visits. She went on to say that it was not about appearances, but about the people behind those factory doors and market stalls, and they are the backbone of the country. Her tone was gentle, but the message was sharp enough to draw invisible blood. The conversation shifted instantly. Someone changed the topic, and laughter resumed, but the warmth was gone. Camilla, standing nearby, smiled thinly. She didn't defend her son, but she didn't correct him either. It wasn't the time, or perhaps she simply didn't see the need. But William did. He felt the insult resonate through him. His respect for Anne, his sense of family loyalty, his belief in quiet duty all became louder that instant. And as he watched Camilla continue chatting, pretending nothing had happened, something inside him hardened. The rest of the evening passed in polite fragments. The speeches ended. The guests began to leave one after another, but the tension lingered like an aftertaste. Princess Anne left early, her composure intact. King Charles shook hands and smiled, but his eyes betrayed concern. For William, he was silent, but left with a storm brewing beneath his royal calm. That night was meant to be a night of honor. Instead, it became the spark that ignited a quiet, cold war no one saw coming. Seat tight to see what happened next. William loses his calm. The night after the Windsor celebration, everything looked calm from the outside. But inside Prince William's head, it wasn't. He couldn't sleep. Not after what he'd heard. It wasn't just the words Tom Parker Bowles had said. It was the tone. That careless laugh. The way it dismissed Princess Anne's decades of work, including her sweat, her quiet mornings, her endless travels around the country. William kept replaying the scene while Anne had stood tall and silent, and Camilla was smiling as if nothing had happened. And his stepbrother, a man who'd never carried royal duty on his shoulders, brushing it off like it was harmless banter. But to William, it wasn't harmless. It was a slap in the face of everything the monarchy was built on. By morning, the story was already whispering through palace walls, not in the press as no one dared leak it, but through aides, staff, and courtiers who saw the tension up close. Windsor was full of eyes and ears, and even a pause in a conversation could speak volumes there. A senior palace source, the kind that often ends up quoted in royal columns, later told people that William was livid, that he saw it as disrespect, plain and simple. Princess Anne represents the standard he wants to live up to. To him, this wasn't gossip. It was a family betrayal. And that word betrayal hit hard. Let's not forget, William has always carried his emotions close to his chest. He rarely lets the public see anger. He learned to stay calm, at least in public, even after losing his mother, Princess Diana, and watching the media circus that followed. But that skill comes at a price. It meant that the deep feelings he suppresses explodes quietly behind closed doors. Later that week, at a small private lunch in London, one of his longtime friends reportedly asked what had happened at Windsor. William didn't give details, but he said just enough. He simply told him that there is a way they do things. And that wasn't it. That was classic William. Composed on the surface, but firm. He decided to call Princess Anne that afternoon. He needed to talk to her to make sure she was okay. Anne, of course, sounded completely unfazed. "Oh, that?" she said in her famously dry tone. "Water off a duck's back. Don't waste your breath, William." But he was wasting his breath because it wasn't just about Anne anymore. It was about what that moment represented. To William, it felt like a test of loyalty, and some members of the family had failed. In private, William confided to one of his advisors as to how they should expect the public to respect them if they don't respect each other. He had a point. The British monarchy lives and dies by perception. It's not just about crowns and ceremonies, but also about unity. And after everything that's happened in recent years, Prince Harry's departure, the Netflix series, the tell-all books, the last thing the royal family needed was more division. So, when Tom Parker Bowles joked about Anne's old-fashioned style, William didn't just hear an insult. He heard a crack in the wall. A small one, but enough to worry him. Meanwhile, the media was picking up on something else, which was a shift in William's demeanor. During a royal visit to Birmingham a few days later, reporters noted he seemed tense. One journalist from The Telegraph described him as polite, but unusually quiet. Another wrote, William looked preoccupied, perhaps distracted. His smiles didn't quite reach his eyes. Behind that polished exterior, he was seething. And not just at Tom. Camilla's silence that night had unsettled him. He understood she was in a difficult position as a mother first, queen second. But still, would his late grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, have let such a comment pass unchallenged? Would his father have? He doubted it. To him, silence meant approval, and that cut deep. When William returned home to Adelaide Cottage, Kate noticed the change instantly. He was pacing more, short-tempered. When she asked if something was wrong, he only said it was family stuff. But Kate knew better. She always does. She reportedly told a close friend that William feels protective of Anne. He sees her as the monarchy's backbone. When someone mocks her, it's like mocking the crown itself. For the next few days, William threw himself into work. School visits, military duties, meetings about mental health initiatives. On camera, he was back to his usual calm self as the future king, charming and steady. But those close to him said he was still cold toward Camilla. At one royal event that same week, cameras caught a moment that fans later dissected online. William walked past Camilla during a public appearance, greeting her with a polite nod. Nothing more. No hug. No warmth, just protocol. Royal watchers noticed immediately. 1. Blog. She knows. Even hinted that William has been keeping his distance from Camilla's family. A quiet sign of the ongoing tension between them. Inside palace walls, aides were now worried. They'd seen this kind of tension before, back when Diana's relationship with Charles began to crack. The atmosphere had felt the same. Quiet, formal, cold. And in that silence, people start to take sides. William wasn't shouting. He didn't need to. His coldness spoke louder than anger ever could. He was making a point, one he knew would reach exactly who it was meant for. Camilla might have thought it would all blow over, but for William, this wasn't a joke to forget. It was a matter of respect. And respect, once broken, isn't easy to rebuild. But this was only the beginning. Keep watching to see how one careless comment was about to turn into a quiet but serious rift. William's private stand and the rift with Camilla. The castle had gone quiet after that dinner, but the silence didn't mean peace. Behind those stone walls, something had shifted, and everyone could feel it. Prince William had always been known for keeping his composure. Raised under the watchful eyes of millions, he learned early that emotions were best kept hidden. But that night, he couldn't hide it. After the dinner, he went back to his private quarters, shutting the door behind him, harder than usual. For years, the tension between him and Queen Camilla had been building. It wasn't birthed out of one dinner or one disrespectful comment. It has always been a clash between two different eras of the royal family. William had grown up watching the pain his mother went through. He saw the tabloids, the scandals, the heartbreak, and Camilla had been a big part of that story, even if the world has now tried to rewrite it. So, when anyone from her side, especially her son, Tom Parker Bowles crossed the line. It didn't just upset William. It reopened old wounds. Royal sources have often said that William is polite to Camilla, but distant in reality. He respects her role, but not necessarily her past. According to royal biographer Angela Levin, William was very protective of his mother's memory. He found it difficult to fully accept Camilla's presence in the family, even years after the marriage. So, when Tom made that comment about Anne's leadership style being old-fashioned, it hit William hard. It looked more like a repeat of disrespect towards people he valued. In the following days, he barely spoke to Camilla. The two would see each other at official meetings, but their exchanges were brief and painfully formal. One staff member later told the Daily Mail, "You could feel the chill in the air whenever they were in the same room." Even Charles noticed. He tried to calm things down, inviting William for a private chat at Clarence's house. But the talk didn't go as planned. In the conversation, William reportedly told his father that he has done his best to keep things peaceful, but he could not continue pretending that nothing was wrong if boundaries are crossed. Charles, who always wanted to keep the family united, asked him to let it go. He said Tom probably didn't mean any harm. But William stood firm. He said it wasn't just about Tom, that it was about what the monarchy stood for. And that's where the deeper issue lay. William's vision for the monarchy is very different from his father's. While Charles believes in forgiveness and adaptation, William believes in accountability and protecting the family image. He wants a monarchy that feels clean, modern, and trustworthy. And to him, that means no more scandals, no more careless words, and no more overlooking disrespect. Kate quietly supported him through it all. Behind closed doors, she became his anchor. Friends close to the couple said she encouraged him to speak his mind, but also to do it with grace. As they prepared for another royal event where Camilla would be present, she advised him that he could always be firm without being cruel. Regardless, things only got more tense. At a charity function a few weeks later, William and Camilla were photographed standing together, smiling for the cameras. But insiders revealed that the smile never reached their eyes. It was all for show, one Palisade said. They were polite, but it was icy. And it didn't help that the press caught on. Headlines started appearing. Royal rift behind the palace gates. William and Camilla's relationship strained after a family dinner incident. Every photo was analyzed. Every glance became a headline. The pressure was immense. Behind the scenes, William started limiting contact with Camilla's side of the family. He was polite at official events but avoided private gatherings where Tom or Laura might be present. Some close to him said it was his way of setting boundaries, but not everyone in the family understood. Princess Anne, ever the realist, warned him during a visit to Sandringham not to let pride become his downfall. But William shook his head and replied that it was principle, not pride. Even Prince Harry, who by this time had already stepped back from royal duties, reportedly called his brother after hearing the news. According to a source, Harry told William, "I get it. Some things cut deeper than people think." It was one of the few times the brothers had agreed on anything lately. The rift with Camilla wasn't explosive. It was quiet, cold, and full of unspoken tension. That's what made it worse. Because in the royal family, silence can be louder than shouting. For William, it wasn't just a family conflict. It was a matter of legacy. He wanted to ensure that when his turn came to wear the crown, it would be without the weight of old grudges and media-driven scandals. But deep down he knew something. Some shadows never really fade. And as the tension grew, the public started noticing more than ever. Something was off. The royal family was smiling for the cameras, but the smiles were strained. But it doesn't here. Because what came next in a public event would turn this private rift into a national talking point. The gala that changed everything. By the time spring came around, the tension within the royal family had stopped being a secret. It wasn't open conflict yet, but people who worked in the palace could feel it. The glances, the awkward silences. Then came the night of the Clarence House Charity Gala. It was supposed to be a beautiful evening, the king's personal project of raising funds for climate initiatives under the prince's trust. Celebrities, philanthropists, and dignitaries from around the world attended. Cameras were everywhere. It should have been a celebration of unity and service. Instead, it became the moment everything cracked wide open. Prince William and Princess Kate arrived first. Calm, composed. The press noted how radiant Kate looked in her elegant blue gown. The same shade Princess Diana once wore to a state banquet in 1989. Commentators called it a subtle nod to legacy. William, as always, looked serious but approachable, chatting with guests, shaking hands, doing his duty. Queen Camilla arrived shortly after, alongside her son Tom Parker Bowles, and that's when things got interesting. Every photographer in the room knew there was tension. The tabloids had been whispering for weeks about coldness between the prince and the queen consort's family. Still, no one expected what would happen next. When William and Tom met in the reception line, the air practically froze. No words, just a handshake, quick, stiff, professional. You could see it even in the photos that William's jaw was tight and his expression unreadable. Tom gave a half smile, as if trying to diffuse the moment, but it didn't work. Reporters later described it as the most awkward 5 seconds in royal history. Even Camilla noticed. Her smile faltered for just a moment, barely noticeable unless you were looking closely. She reached out and lightly touched Tom's shoulder, almost like she was reminding him to hold it together. But the damage was already done. Inside the ballroom, the atmosphere was thick. Everyone was on edge, trying to pretend nothing was wrong. But small things gave it away. William didn't sit near Camilla. The seating chart had him on the opposite end of the table, beside Kate and the Danish ambassador. Tom was placed near his mother, chatting quietly but keeping his eyes down whenever cameras passed. Royal watchers online quickly noticed. Within hours, #RoyalTension was trending on Twitter. People started comparing this gala to others. "They used to laugh together," one fan commented under a photo from 2022. "Now, they look like strangers." And that's exactly what it felt like. During the speeches, the king thanked everyone for attending. His tone was warm, but his eyes darted briefly toward William and Camilla, as if silently pleading for harmony. But harmony was far from the room. When it was William's turn to give a short address about environmental responsibility, his words were calm and steady. But at one point, he said something that made people pause. He said, "True service isn't about popularity or appearances. It's about consistency. It's about doing the work quietly, faithfully, even when no one's watching." It was subtle, but everyone in that room knew exactly who those words were aimed at. The moment he finished, the applause was polite but tense. Cameras captured Camilla clapping slowly, her face unreadable. Tom looked down at his plate. The next morning, the Daily Mail, People magazine, and The Times all ran variations of the same headline. William's subtle message at the gala, a royal rift in plain sight. The articles didn't mention Tom's earlier comment about Anne directly, but they didn't need to. The story had taken a life of its own. Royal experts like Jenny Bond and Katie Nicholl weighed in on the situation. Jenny Bond told GB News that William has always admired Princess Anne, and if someone insulted her dedication, she imagines he'd take that personally. Meanwhile, Camilla's friends spoke out anonymously to defend her family. One told The Telegraph, "Tom didn't mean anything by what he said. It's been blown out of proportion. Camilla hates that it's causing such strain." But William wasn't convinced. To him, it wasn't about blowing things up. It was about drawing a line, a quiet message that not everything could be joked about. At Kensington Palace, aides started noticing how William was beginning to take a more defined leadership role. He was setting the tone, deciding which public appearances to prioritize, and showing what kind of king he would one day be. A king disciplined, focused, and deeply protective of his family's values. Behind the scenes, though, Camilla was frustrated. She reportedly told a confidant that it wasn't fair how William was treating her son like an outsider. And Charles? He was torn. He loved his son. He loved his wife, but he couldn't mediate forever. The tension was slowly seeping into the public image of the monarchy, something he'd spent years trying to stabilize. The gala was meant to be a symbol of unity to showcase the royal family working together for a cause greater than themselves. But instead, it became the night people realized that unity had cracks. By the end of the evening, everyone left quietly. No joint photos, no warm waves, just cold smiles and separate cars pulling out of Clarence House. And for the press, that was all the confirmation they needed. Behind the glitter and the protocol, something had shifted permanently. And no one, not even the king, knew how to fix it. Because sometimes, in families as powerful as this one, it's not the shouting matches that cause the most damage. It's the silence. After that night, King Charles decided he'd had enough and so called for a private meeting. But what was said behind those palace doors will leave you in tears. The family meeting and unusual truce. The chill from the Clarence House Gala didn't fade. It lingered, creeping into every royal corridor. The king could feel it too, and when the tension began to overshadow official duties, he knew it had gone too far. So, King Charles called for a private family meeting. It was held in his study at Buckingham Palace. Princess Anne declined to attend. She simply said she had a prior engagement with one of her charities. Beneath the heavy air in the room, no one met anyone's eyes. King Charles spoke first. He expressed concern on the damage of the ongoing conflict to the royal family and the monarchy as a whole, insisting on the need for an open address. Tom admitted he meant no disrespect and even deeply admires Princess Anne. When Camilla spoke, she said that Tom's comment wasn't malicious. She also said that it was unfair to scrutinize her kids for every word they say. The argument circled. No one won. Even though they agreed to move on, no one really did. Despite it all, there is something these moments tell. The fierce protection of Prince William for his aunt reveals an upcoming king who still believes in the old virtues of duty, honor, and respect for the crown's legacy. Meanwhile, Camilla's defense of her son reminds us of the eternal challenge of blending love and tradition. In the end, what sustains the British monarchy is not the crowns or its affluence. It is respect, restraint, and loyalty. What do you think? Is there a line between a casual remark and a profound disrespect? Who do you think was wrong? Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You'll enjoy it.